Like, it's so crucial to target the right audience meticulously because of the cost of Google ads and advertising in general. You want to make sure that any ads that you are displaying to people are as relevant as they possibly can.
Are there any advanced strategies that you could share with some of our listeners today that are focused around high ticket items when it comes to Google advertising in particular? Anything that kind of springs to mind that you're doing that's working really well at the moment, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So getting straight into it with the strategy stuff then, like you said, I would 100% position Google as kind of like the most important platform that you want to crack first of all. And then I would say, kind of like Facebook and email follows that. And the reason is because high ticket stuff that people, the products that people are selling that people are already in market for, it's really just about leveraging Google ads to get those products in front of the right eyes. That's really what this game is all about. So if you can prioritize that and advanced strategies on Google and then follow that up with, Facebook ads, email marketing, and a more well-rounded marketing system, that's typically what I'd recommend for people that are in your space. And it's certainly the kind of the approach that we take with your brand as well, Lewis. So yeah, I think jumping straight into it, my first most ultimately important point is just be really, really specific with targeting. Like, it's so crucial to target the right audience meticulously because of the cost of Google ads and advertising in general. You want to make sure that any ads that you are displaying to people are as relevant as they possibly can. And so being as meticulous as you possibly can with the target audience is just like absolutely key. And that just means defining what your audience is. Like, who is the person that is most likely to buy your high ticket product, and then, putting that knowledge into place when it comes to the actual advertising itself, and targeting them specifically as well. And this extends to remarketing too. So just making sure you re-engage in the users that have already shown interest in what you're selling, by tailoring your audience based on, past interactions with your website, all that kind of stuff as well. So just getting really, really meticulous with like your targeting, both at top of funnel and bottom of funnel, will just help massively, basically. Next thing is obviously just like smart bidding with target ROAS. We use smart bidding strategies all the time. So what we often do is just set up a target return on ad spend. So if the brand's never run Google ads before, and they're trying to figure out, okay, what's their ability to achieve results at X level of ROAS. And typically what we'll do is we'll say, try and figure out what your break-even ROAS is, then go a few marks above that to see if you can achieve the ROAS targets and the ROAS levels of that. But if not, if your campaigns aren't spending, then just ratchet your budget down just slightly, maybe like 10% every 3 to 4 days. And that'll really help you just find that sweet spot where you can actually start to get sales coming through and still be profitable. And you really want to just be on that cusp of like being able to sell your product at the highest amount of volume and in the most quantities, but making sure that you're still profitable. And so ratcheting the ROAS target down on one of those smart bidding strategies is just a really, really good technique, finding where that line is really. So yeah, it's just a nice, easy one.
Fantastic, Joe. So it's all about finding the perfect profitability level. I want to dive in a bit deeper where you mentioned about really manually targeting the audience that you want to put your ads in front of. So obviously we know that Google's AI machine learning is advancing all the time, but do you think that we can still manually show our ads to people better than Google can predict themselves?
I think it's a balance in your account, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think that you should give up on manual targeting yet. That's my honest opinion. I think PMax is very much Google's flagship product, and it's going to become more and more kind of dialed in, and they're going to be able to get better and better results each time. But I don't think that we're at the stage yet where it's like scrap all the manual targeting, especially if you're just starting out and you're just like launching your account. I think it's really important for you to personally get an understanding of who your target audience is by doing that manual work and running that alongside the PMax stuff. And that is going to give you much more of a higher indication of what works.
I totally agree on that point, and I could probably chip in there because I remember the days where, it probably still is the case, when you start a new Google Ads account and they try and force you into, I think they call it express mode, where it's like one smart campaign and they're just like, just click this button, enter your card details and we'll start spending for you. And it's the danger, I think, with that, like you said, around if you just say, hey, PMax is all I'm going to know. I don't want to know how it works. I just want to know there's a black box there and I press the button and it brings me sales. The danger is, what if it doesn't work? How do you troubleshoot if you don't understand it? And I think that's another part where manual comes into play, right? And I know I've seen that the way your team do it is certainly still have Google Shopping campaigns running, because PMax tends to absorb a lot of the retargeting sales, or the sales that come from retargeting, and claim that they're the doing of a PMax campaign, when the reality is, would they have existed had you not had another campaign running? It's very good at like absorbing that attribution from what I've seen. So maybe you could dive into a bit more around how Performance Max actually differs from what we think of when we talk about traditional Google ads, Joe.
Yeah, so how does Performance Max differ? So, it's basically automated placements and dynamic ads, and Performance Max ultimately differs from traditional Google ads by essentially automatically placing your ads across, Google's various platforms, including, YouTube, Gmail, Google Display Network, and not just on the search results. And then essentially Google will take the assets that you provide and dynamically create and test different combinations, ultimately trying to optimize for the best performance, the best combination of dynamic elements without any manual intervention on your part. And so in theory, it's a very it's a really kind of good new system. And if AI can get it right and get that combination absolutely perfect every single time, then it would be the ultimate thing. And I think that's definitely the way that Google's trying to head. It's the exact same on Facebook as well, with something called Advantage Shopping Plus campaigns. It's just like another way that these big platforms are leveraging AI to basically use dynamic elements to create combinations to try and basically help you guys out. But exactly like you said, Lewis, what happens is those campaigns often soak up a lot of the retargeting as well. So sometimes the numbers can be a little bit skewed, and it's difficult to tell what is actually really generating. And so doing that bit of manual on the side, I always find is super duper helpful. And then, obviously with PMax, you're essentially relying on, Google's algorithms to decide the optimal bidding strategy. And we can actually find that this will take somewhat, or I would say a minimum of 14 days really for PMax to actually start to kick in. I know Google says that it's 7 days, but in our experience, it's actually much, much longer, at least twice as long, sometimes even longer than 14 days as well. So just being a little bit patient with it is definitely something that I recommend, and not trying to switch it off or make too many big brash changes, very, very quickly. And that's easier said than done if you're not getting results. And that's why I think manual is always a good thing to fall back on, especially if you can get results through that. And then you can really commit to spending a certain level of budget on your PMax campaign and hoping that's going to start mopping stuff up eventually. But yeah, you just got to leave those campaigns a little bit longer than you really anticipate, and that will really help.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that is really common. We see from the members that we work with at Dropship Unlocked, Joe, is where someone sets their PMax campaign live, and the next day they're logging into Google Ads and being okay, I had 100 clicks, where are the sales? And I think the thing that we have to remember with high ticket, the volume, of course, of sales is going to be lower than if you're selling, £10 widgets or whatever. They're going to be flying out the door. When you're selling products that are $2 or $3 grand, you might only sell 2 or 3 in your first week of running ads, or your first couple of weeks, until you've really got those campaigns dialed in. But once you do sell one, all of the profit from that sale pays for all of the ads for that whole 2 weeks, right? And so it's just that patience and removing yourself from the decision making by just not watching. I find it's easier to just not see than it is to see and not act, because then you're testing your willpower. Just don't look.
It's so true. When you're selling, products that are much lower ticket, it's quicker to learn. You can learn a lot quicker because you're getting that instant feedback. And if the sales aren't coming through at that level of RAS, you can switch it off. But typically speaking, we actually find it slightly easier to get results on higher ticket products. It's just having the courage to be able to advertise for a decent period of time for PMax to start working. And then exactly like you said, when that sale does come in, it's all of a sudden the ROAS jumps up exponentially. And then, if you can get some consistency there, then, you're going to be off to the races with it. So yeah, that's 100% the case too. I think also, just so you guys are aware as well, every time we look inside a Google account, the number one thing that we see that's just not being done properly is tracking. For some reason, every single Google account that we look into, the tracking has not been set up correctly. There's double tracking, there's multiple codes on each of the pages, and there's so many different checkboxes that we have to go back and revert it to the proper standard, which I will actually, for the premium members, for the training after this, Lewis, I've got a bit of like a tracking checklist that everyone can go through and just make sure that their account's set up absolutely bulletproof, basically. So that'd be really, really cool to share over there. But yeah, that's definitely like a big faux pas that a lot of people make, and helps the PMAX massively if you can get it dialed in correctly.
Amazing. Thank you, Joe. That's it's going to be absolute gold. And just to dial in a little bit more on Google Ads, because it is the primary method for generating sales with high ticket dropshipping. I know we're going to touch on some other points afterwards as well. But so you mentioned that setting up a performance max campaign works well, but often concurrently alongside a manual campaign as well. Specifically, what campaign type would you like to set up? And for some context, say this is a new account, we've signed up with our first 4 or 5 suppliers. How would you go about setting up your first sort of manual Google Ads campaign as well?
100%. That's a really good question, but I'd love to actually dart that question right back at you guys, if you don't mind. Like, what would you guys recommend in terms of like the first one? Because I know what I'd pick, but I'd be really interested in what you teach as well.
Yeah, we used to go with the approach of a manual shopping campaign, and we used to have like a 3-tiered structure, because you used to be able to pull out the exact search terms that are coming through those campaigns, find out the ones that converted, add them in as negatives so that they filtered through to your bottom of funnel campaign, then take those keywords and say, right, those are working well, let's now put search text ad campaigns out based around those high converting proven keywords. So it was almost like a wide net funnel approach where you kind of filter the keywords down. That's changed in recent times though, in certainly the last year, as PMAX has become like, yes, you may sack a little bit of that early ROAS because you're kind of letting the algorithm do a bit of exploring that you might block out ordinarily with negative keywords. It's getting 80% of the results, for 20% of the input. And it's definitely a simpler route to get people up and running with sales. So now the way we view it is PMAX to start with, use that as your kind of wide net. Then from that, maybe branch out, potentially creating shopping campaigns using the manual old fashioned Google shopping. Or straight to search text ads once you've got those high converting search terms. And with all of this, obviously, there's an underlay of like retargeting on everything. So retargeting across meta ads whilst you're doing that, retargeting across display network. And obviously, it's retargeting being baked into PMAX as well. But that's the approach we take now. Do you have any different advice from that?
No, I think that's pretty much nailed on. I think you explained it exactly the way that I do it, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's definitely, you're definitely teaching the right thing there. And we see that to get because the ultimate goal is to get results like as quickly as you possibly can. And so like structuring the account in the way that it'll do that is it's going to be the best way to do it. So no, I love that. It's cool.